I love interesting games and interesting takes on pre-existing genres, and No Rest of the Wicked is aiming to do that, and boy does this look good. Last Friday we got to see a deep look at the game with many of the systems as well as the early access release date, and I wanted to talk about it. It's taken a couple of days for me to get this video together, but I want to talk about this studio's next game because No Rest for the Wicked seems to be their next big attempt at pushing the genre forward. If you're unfamiliar with the studio, Moon Studios has already got some incredible experience at pushing genres forward with the previous two games that they created. Ori and the Blind Forest and the sequel Will of the Wisps are two of my favourite platforming games / Metroidvanias that I've ever played, and I'm glad to see them taking a crack at the action RPG genre. From what I've seen so far, they're leaning heavily into the Souls-like influences, and it's not traditional ARPG, as we always see like an isometric RPG like Diablo or Path of Exile or Last Epoch that's just come out quite recently. From the footage we've seen so far, the big draw for me is the art style, right down to the animations, but the game's visuals itself looks like it's been pulled off a wall. It's very much like this water painting type vibe, and you've jumped inside like an illustrated 3D art, and it's really beautiful from all of the gameplay and the trailers that I've seen, and it looks like someone's actually gone through and painted every single element of the game. This art style is going to be apparent across the entire world, because from the footage I've seen so far, there is a full day night cycle which influences how the game looks, dynamic weather effects, all wrapped up in a nice and gritty dark fantasy setting, or fantasy setting, either way. It looks kind of more dark fantasy to me. The best part for me is when they talked about the world itself. Every element of No Rest for the Wicked's world is going to be handcrafted and not procedurally generated. I love this because a lot of games at the moment that are open world rely on this procedural generation to build out the world, and a lot of times it can feel very repetitive or a little bit empty, and it falls flat. If you've played Ori, you will know that they make great looking worlds and visually they look epic. So I'm very excited on this front to go and explore the world of No Rest for the Wicked. But it's not just visuals. The design of gameplay within the world is quite intriguing as well. There's going to be lots of secrets to find, including loot, which obviously we all love. And the intriguing part about this is that all of the loot in the game is randomized, meaning that my playthrough is going to be distinctly different to yours. This goes down to all of the weapons and the gear that you get, or the resources that you're going to be able to get. And I think this is an important aspect because sometimes when you're playing in a playthrough, you can kind of speed run through areas, especially if you're watching like a walkthrough or a guide. And I think this is going to be something that changes up the norm when it comes to exploring these games. Thankfully, exploring the world is going to be relatively easy because they have WASD movement, so WASD on PC, and there's also going to be controller support as well. And I think this is going to be the easiest to control purely because of the point and click nature that you have with a mouse, and I think it's going to be a lot more tactile and you're going to feel it a lot more when you use a controller or with WASD. And they've said that they're going to be supporting the other consoles at launch. At the early access launch, it's only going to be on PC, so you'll have to wait a little bit longer if you're a console fan to jump into this game. I feel like this game is going to have quite a lot of exploration to do, including the different pathways to get to areas. From the variety of different videos from different creators and previews, there is a lot of ways to approach one specific area. For example, there is a first boss that you fight in this particular demo, and there are about 5 different ways to get to that specific boss outside of the main. Just run down the main path and find them. Back ways into a castle, climbing up vines, sewer entrances potentially, or even completely avoiding the boss and then coming back around to it and exploring the round area. Everything that you see within the world and what you can see is going to be something that you will hopefully be able to explore. Obviously, there's going to be some limitations, but it seems that way from what I've seen so far. During the showcase, they talked about how the world is going to be alive and it will be a changing experience. They do this by not having enemies respawn when you die and stay injured. But the cool thing about this is if you revisit a region in the future, it can play drastically different to the first time you went there, meaning opportunities to fight new enemies with different resources. And it also seems like there's no Souls resource system that is present here like it would be in all of the other ARPG genres. So it's going to be hopefully not as punishing when you die. so it'll be a little bit easier for people to like fall into, and hopefully that is going to stay that way in the future. No Rest for the Wicked looks more like Souls-likes than any other top-down perspective game in the genre, and it definitely shows. During the gameplay segment, the dev spoke about the animation-driven combat, which basically means as soon as you go to make an attack, a dodge, you'll be locked into a specific movement. And this isn't just for you, this is going to be for enemies as well, to be able to telegraph what they are doing. This also means you have to consider what action you're going to do before you perform it during combat. The usual things I hear though, parrying, dodging, blocking, etc. But it also seems like there's a heavy charge attack that you're going to be able to use alongside some interesting stuff we will talk about in just a moment. I won't be able to tell unless I play it for myself, as I've played a lot of other Souls games, so it will be different to see how it plays from a top-down perspective. I do, however, like that there is a variety of weapons, and each of the weapons have their own move sets and animations for each weapons. They have weapon weight as well, so it means that things that, like a massive sword, is going to be a lot more bulky, but probably do potentially a little bit more damage, as well as the usual gear weight that you're going to be having as well. For example, heavy armor will give you more of a longer roll. If you go a bit lighter, you'll have like a dodge that's a bit easier, and it will consume less stamina. And the nice part about all of this is they're going to be going with the soft class system, meaning you will have flexibility to swap and change up what you want to do throughout your playthrough. Run a heavy claymore build, or even a caster build with a staff, which had some really cool gameplay within the showcase that I liked, where you have like the ability to hit stuff with your staff and then call into your magic, which was really neat. Moon Studios is also taking an interesting look at gear in the game, because gear will obviously have the randomized stats in the game, but it will also be random because of where you find stuff within the world. And they're also taking a different approach to rarities. White items, i.e. common items, are highly customizable, which we'll talk about more in just a moment. Blue items offer positive attributes or enchantments, like for buffs, but the neat thing is purple and unique rarities. Purple items are considered cursed, meaning that they have extremely good enhancement effects, but they have a negatively impacting one too. For example, in the showcase, they had the buffs that they had on this specific piece of gear, but it was like equip load is like plus 25%. So it means that if you do equip this, then you're going to put on a little bit more weight. So that's a pretty interesting effect there. And they also said the uniques in the game have been handcrafted by the devs themselves to have some extremely cool enchantments and make them very powerful, being that they are unique. Weapons also have a chance to drop their own runes. Runes essentially are the ability to build up focus to do rune attacks, and these runes can be extracted and put onto other weapons. And the cool thing about runes with these rune attacks is they're going to be different depending on what you use on a specific weapon when you build up the focus bar. From the sounds of it, you're going to be able to take a white weapon and customize them a lot. Maybe you can upgrade them into a blue weapon, especially when you get the right roll that you want. So it may be that white weapons aren't just useless. It might be something that you really like with a unique move set that you can buff up in future. Whether or not we can actually curse these items as well would be pretty cool. And hopefully we'll be able to see more of these gear in future when we actually get our hands on the game. Upgrading weapons is going to be key as well, so you need to find the resources out in the world, and the attributes for specific weapons will most likely scale with the damage that you've put into them. For example, strength, dex, intelligence, faith are the main stats that we've got to see, so those are probably going to play a key part in increasing a weapon's performance. Alongside being in combat, finding gear and exploring the world, there is going to be the town of Sacrament. This is a city, and it works like a hub area like in many other RPGs, having different NPCs and quest givers. You will be able to influence the city during your time playing. One example of this is going and helping out the blacksmith that allows him to upgrade their forge, meaning that you can get better gear and upgrades as you play. Investing resources into the city to build different things, which we briefly saw with like an inn, fast travel lodgings, elevators, sawmills, and more, will be an interesting thing to do. You can do this by finding resources out in the world, such as wood, ingots, and such, which can then be invested in one of the neat areas of Sacrament. One of the coolest things about that is you also get player housing. You can own and customize your own property, and it gives me huge Fable 2 vibes of when you were able to like own a city and build that up there. And it's a gridless system when you're actually inside the house when you own it, meaning you can craft it and make it look exactly the way that you want it to. I can see myself spending a little bit of time in this section of the game, being able to put things that I want and mainly just making it look pretty cool. Endgame details are a little bit scarce at the moment. All we know is that we'll be going into the Crucible and fighting some of the toughest enemies in the game, but that's really all we know. But the thing that you probably want to know when watching this video is when the game is actually releasing. It's going into early access on the 18th of April on PC. There's a few updates that they have planned over the roadmap, including co-op and PvP multiplayer, new regions, enemies and quests, and then obviously culminating in the 1.0 release, which is where it will then release on consoles as well. I've not really given my own opinion on this, but I am obviously very, very excited for No Rest for the Wicked. I've played a lot of Soulslike, I've played a lot of ARPGs, and it seems like they're taking a lot of different elements from these games and making it their own and trying to push the genre forward. Maybe it's not as brutal as the other Souls-like games, so it's a lot more approachable, and the art style is very good looking, and I really like that whole vibe because I've played what Moon Studios has made before, which gives me a hell of a lot of confidence going into this. Everything about Ori and the Blind Forest and Will of the Wisps was tight. The animations were great and the platforming was great, and if they take that knowledge and put it into this specific genre and try and push the genre forward a little bit. They did this with Ori, and hopefully they can repeat those steps because that's what they've said that they want to do. They want to influence this genre, and it's nice to see a top-down perspective Souls-like game. I'm not sure if there's many on the market. I'm not familiar with any good ones or ones that are quite high in popularity. So it'll be nice to see this, and I will be there having a look at this game on the 18th of April. I'll try and do like a mini impressions, and then obviously we'll do a review at 1.0. And as always, if you are interested in this game, tell me down in the comment section. I love to interact with comments talking about more manner of different games, especially on the videos I'm talking about. And if you've enjoyed this video, leave a like on it, subscribe if you're new, and as always, this has been Jimbo, and I'll see you guys next time.